What happens when the quiet girl in the back of your classroom turns out to be humanity's greatest secret weapon? When the person everyone overlooks becomes the one who saves entire civilizations? Maya Chen had perfected the art of being invisible. For 3 years at the Galactic Academy, she kept her head down, her grades average, and her true nature hidden. While alien students showcased their incredible abilities, telepathic Centaurians, shape-shifting morphs, energy-wielding plasma-born, Maya appeared to be just another unremarkable human exchange student. But some secrets are too powerful to stay buried forever. When a crisis threatens to destroy everything the Academy stands for, when ancient enemies emerge from the shadows with technology that makes even the most advanced species tremble, the truth about Maya Chen will shatter every assumption about human limitations. Because sometimes, the greatest strength isn't what you can do, it's what you choose not to do, until the moment when everything depends on it. This is the story of how a nobody became the most important somebody in the galaxy. And why humanity's greatest gift isn't our technology or our weapons, it's our unbreakable spirit and our refusal to give up no matter the odds. Get ready to discover what happens when Earth's best-kept secret finally comes to light. Maya Chen adjusted her worn backpack straps and slipped through the crowded corridors of the Galactic Academy like a shadow. Students from dozens of species filled the gleaming hallways, their conversations creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonious tones that had become as familiar to her as breathing. She moved carefully between towering Krathan warriors, whose crystalline armor caught the artificial sunlight, sidestepped around clusters of gossiping Centaurian telepaths, whose silver eyes never quite looked at anything directly, and ducked under the floating discussion pods, where Aryan students debated in their melodic language. 3 years of this careful dance, this precise choreography of mediocrity. Maya had learned exactly how to blend in, how to be present but unremarkable, noticed but not memorable. Her test scores were always exactly at the 50th percentile. Her participation in class discussions was minimal but not absent. Her social interactions were polite. She was, by all appearances, exactly what the Academy's records claimed she was. An average human exchange student from the Sol system, lucky to be here but not particularly exceptional. The morning's interspecies history class was held in Lecture Hall 7, a massive amphitheater with gravity-adjusted seating that accommodated everything from the massive bulk of Gorian scholars to the delicate floating forms of the wisp kind. Maya took her usual seat in the middle section, not too close to suggest eagerness, not too far back to imply disinterest. Professor Veltar, an elderly Centaurian with traditional silver markings across his forehead, was discussing the Third Galactic War when Maya arrived. The human contribution to the conflict was, as historical records show, minimal. Professor Veltar was saying, his mental voice projecting clearly into every student's consciousness. While other species provided advanced weaponry, tactical superiority, or unique abilities, humans primarily served in support roles. Their biological limitations and lack of any exceptional evolutionary traits made them unsuitable for frontline combat operations. Maya kept her expression neutral, even as she felt several dozen eyes turned toward her and the 3 other human students scattered throughout the amphitheater. This wasn't unusual. Discussions about human limitations were a common theme in many classes. The professors weren't being cruel, they were simply stating facts as they understood them. Humans were slow compared to the lightning-fast reflexes of the Kestrel-born. They were weak compared to the mountain-moving strength of the Gorians. They couldn't manipulate energy like the Plasma-born, couldn't read minds like the Centaurians, couldn't phase through matter like the Ethereals, and couldn't regenerate from nearly any injury like the Adaptation Core. In a galaxy full of species that had evolved incredible abilities, humans were the cosmic equivalent of participation trophies. Miss Chen, Professor Veltar's attention suddenly focused on her, his silver eyes meeting hers directly. Perhaps you could share your thoughts on humanity's role in galactic conflicts? Maya felt the familiar flutter of carefully controlled panic. This was always the most dangerous moment when direct attention was focused on her. Too much knowledge would raise questions. Too little would seem suspicious for an academy student. She had to thread the needle perfectly. "I think," she said slowly, choosing each word with care, "that humans often find ways to contribute that aren't immediately obvious. Sometimes the most important roles aren't the most visible ones." It was a safe answer, vague enough to avoid controversy, but thoughtful enough to seem engaged. Professor Valtar's expression suggested mild approval before he moved on to discuss Gorian siege tactics. After class, Maya gathered her materials with the same deliberate averageness she applied to everything else. As she stood to leave, she noticed Zektar approaching. The young Krathan was one of the most promising students in their year, his crystalline armor already showing the deep blue coloration that indicated exceptional academic achievement among his people. "Maya." Zektar's voice resonated through the crystal formations on his chest, creating harmonious overtones. "I wanted to ask you something." Maya's internal warning systems activated, but she kept her expression mildly curious. "What's up, Zek?" "In advanced physics yesterday, when Professor Quantum was explaining the impossibility of faster-than-light communication across dimensional barriers, you seemed like you wanted to say something, but you didn't speak up." This was dangerous territory. Maya had indeed wanted to point out 3 significant errors in the professor's reasoning, along with 2 possible solutions that would make such communication not only possible, but relatively simple. But correcting a professor on advanced theoretical physics would definitely not fit her carefully maintained profile. "I'm still learning," she said with a self-deprecating smile. "Sometimes I think I understand something, but then I realize I'm missing a lot of the fundamentals." Zektar's armor flickered with the patterns that indicated confusion among his species. "But your questions in basic engineering last month suggested a very sophisticated understanding of multidimensional mechanics." Maya felt a cold spike of worry. Had she slipped up? She reviewed her questions from that class, analyzing each one for any indication of knowledge beyond what an average human student should possess. She had asked about the practical applications of dimensional folding in FTL drive construction, but that should have been well within the range of curiosity for any academy student. "I read a lot," she said simply. "Sometimes I pick up concepts without really understanding them deeply." It seemed to satisfy Zektar, whose armor returned to its normal blue-silver coloration. "Perhaps we could study together sometime? I find human perspectives interesting, even if—" He caught himself before finishing the sentence. "Even if we're not particularly gifted," Maya completed with a laugh that she hoped sounded genuinely amused rather than bitter. "I'd like that, though I'm not sure how much help I'd be." As Zektar left, Maya allowed herself a moment of genuine sadness. She liked him. Under different circumstances, they might have been real friends. But friendship required honesty, and honesty was the one luxury Maya could never afford. The rest of her day followed the same careful patterns. Xenobiology class, where she demonstrated adequate but unremarkable understanding of alien physiology. Advanced mathematics, where she solved problems correctly but slowly, always taking the full allotted time even though she could complete most exercises in seconds. Combat training, where she performed at the bottom quartile of human participants, which placed her near the middle of the overall class rankings. Combat training was actually the most dangerous class for her. Physical activities were where the gap between her apparent abilities and her real capabilities was most stark. She had to constantly remind herself to be slower, weaker, less coordinated than she actually was. Every movement had to be calculated to appear natural while hiding the fact that she could move faster than most species' eyes could track. Today's exercise involved navigating an obstacle course designed to challenge each species' unique abilities. The Aryan students floated gracefully through aerial sections, their natural flight making the course seem effortless. Kestrel-born students blurred through speed sections that would have been impossible for most other species. Gorians simply walked through barriers that would stop anyone else. When Maya's turn came, she approached the course with the careful awkwardness she had perfected. She climbed walls that she could have run up, jumped gaps she could have leaped in a single bound, and navigated balance beams while pretending to struggle with coordination that was actually precise enough to walk on monofilament wire. Her time was exactly what it should have been for an average human student, respectable enough to avoid remedial training, but unremarkable enough to avoid special attention. After combat training, Maya usually returned to her dormitory for what appeared to be study time, but was actually her most dangerous hour of each day. This was when she allowed herself to think, to really think, without the constant mental filtering required to maintain her facade. Her dormitory room was a standard single-occupancy unit, about 12 feet square with a sleeping alcove, a small study area, and basic amenities. The walls were covered with posters and decorations that suggested the interests of a typical academy student. Star charts, images of famous explorers, motivational quotes in a dozen languages. Anyone who searched her room would find exactly what they expected to find. But Maya's real life existed in the spaces between seconds, in the thoughts she never spoke aloud, in the capabilities she never demonstrated. She sat at her desk and opened her official coursework, but her mind was elsewhere. Today's physics lecture had been particularly frustrating. Professor Quantum's explanation of dimensional barriers wasn't just wrong, it was dangerously wrong. If anyone actually followed his theoretical framework in practical applications, they would likely cause a cascade failure that could destabilize local space-time in a radius of several light-years. But pointing this out would require her to demonstrate knowledge of multi-dimensional physics that was at least 2 centuries beyond the current galactic standard.
The mathematics alone would reveal that her understanding of reality's fundamental structure was more complete than that of the Academy's most advanced professors. Maya pulled up her personal files, the ones that existed only in a heavily encrypted partition of her personal datapad.
Here were her real projects, theoretical frameworks for faster-than-light travel that didn't require exotic matter, energy generation systems that could power entire star systems using nothing but ambient cosmic radiation, and military technologies that could make any species effectively invincible. These weren't just theoretical exercises. Maya had built working prototypes of several of these technologies. They were hidden in her dormitory room, disguised as common household items or student projects. The seemingly decorative crystal on her nightstand was actually a power source that could run the Academy's entire electrical grid for several years. The small sculpture on her desk was a communication device capable of instantaneous transmission across galactic distances. Maya had been building these things since she was 7 years old, back when she first realized that her understanding of the universe was fundamentally different from everyone around her. It had taken her years to understand that this difference wasn't normal, that other humans couldn't intuitively grasp the mathematical relationships that governed reality at its most basic level. By the time she was 12, Maya had already surpassed the theoretical knowledge of Earth's greatest scientists. By 15, she had developed technologies that could revolutionize human civilization. But she had also learned the most important lesson of all: knowledge without wisdom was dangerous. And revealing her capabilities too early could destroy everything she hoped to protect. The Galactic Academy had seemed like the perfect solution. Here she could study other species, learn their strengths and weaknesses, and understand how her own abilities might fit into the larger galactic community. More importantly, she could remain hidden while determining whether humanity was ready for what she could offer. The answer, after 3 years of observation, was both encouraging and terrifying. Humanity was ready for technological advancement, but the galaxy was not ready for what an advanced humanity might become. The other species had built their entire social and political structures around the assumption that humans were the galactic equivalent of useful pets. Pleasant enough, occasionally clever, but fundamentally limited. Maya's existence proved that assumption catastrophically wrong. As she worked on her real studies, Maya's enhanced hearing picked up conversations from other rooms in the dormitory. Zektar was discussing dimensional physics with his study group, confidently explaining concepts that were only partially correct. Down the hall, a group of Zentorian students were using their telepathic abilities to share information for an upcoming examination, which technically violated Academy rules but was rarely enforced since mental communication was as natural to them as speech. In the room above her, Lysa, an ethereal student, was practicing phasing exercises, repeatedly shifting between solid and incorporeal states. The slight vibrations in the building structure told Maya that Lysa was having trouble with partial phasing, probably because she was trying to maintain consciousness across dimensional boundaries without proper anchoring techniques. Maya could have solved Lysa's problem in about 30 seconds. The mathematics of dimensional phasing were relatively straightforward once you understood that consciousness wasn't actually bound to a single dimensional state. But helping would require her to demonstrate knowledge that no human should possess. This was the constant torture of her existence at the academy. She was surrounded by students struggling with concepts she could explain easily, working on projects she could complete effortlessly, and facing challenges she could overcome without breaking a sweat. But her mission required her to be average, unremarkable, forgettable. Maya closed her files and focused on her official homework. Tonight's assignment was an essay on the cultural exchange benefits of the academy system. She would write exactly what was expected, a competent but unremarkable analysis showing adequate understanding of the topic without any insights that might suggest deeper knowledge of galactic politics or xenosocial dynamics. As she wrote, Maya allowed her mind to wander to the real reason she was here. Somewhere in the galaxy, humanity's enemies were moving. The intelligence reports she received through carefully hidden channels suggested that an alliance of species was forming, united by their fear of human expansion and their desire to limit human technological development. These species had studied humanity carefully and reached a conclusion that was both accurate and incomplete. Humans were dangerous not because of any single exceptional ability, but because of their unpredictability and their tendency to find creative solutions to impossible problems. The proposed solution was preemptive action, striking at human colonies before humanity could develop the technology to defend itself effectively. What these species didn't know was that the technology already existed. Maya had spent years developing defensive and offensive capabilities that could protect every human world simultaneously. But deploying these technologies would reveal her existence. And once the galaxy knew that humans could produce individuals like Maya, the political balance of the galaxy was built on each species' known capabilities. Gorians were strong, but slow. Centaurians were telepathic, but physically fragile. Kestrel-born were fast, but lacked endurance. Every species had advantages and limitations that kept them roughly equal in overall capability. Humans were supposed to be the cosmic wildcards, useful in small numbers but incapable of threatening the established order. Maya's existence suggested that this assumption was not just wrong, but dangerously wrong. If humans could produce individuals with capabilities that exceeded every other known species, then humanity wasn't a minor player in galactic affairs. They were a sleeping giant that no one had realized was sleeping. Maya finished her essay and submitted it through the Academy's standard network. Like everything else she produced, it would receive average marks and be quickly forgotten. But as she prepared for sleep, Maya's enhanced senses detected something unusual, a faint energy signature that didn't match any of the Academy's standard systems. Someone was scanning the dormitory with detection equipment that was more advanced than anything she had seen before. The scan was subtle, designed to be undetectable to normal senses, but Maya's perception was far from normal. The scanning pattern suggested they were looking for something specific, checking each room methodically. Maya's pulse quickened. After 3 years of perfect camouflage, had someone finally detected something suspicious about her? She quickly reviewed her recent actions, searching for any mistake that might have revealed her true nature. The scan passed over her room, lingered for several seconds longer than the others, then moved on. Maya forced herself to breathe normally and maintain the biorhythms of natural sleep, but her mind was racing. The energy signature wasn't from any known galactic technology, which meant either someone had made a significant breakthrough in sensor development, or there were players in this game that she hadn't accounted for. As the scanner moved to other sections of the dormitory, Maya began making contingency plans. If her cover was blown, she would need to extract herself quickly while protecting the other students from any collateral damage. But she also needed to determine who was doing the scanning and what they were looking for. The next few days would determine whether Maya-chan could continue her careful masquerade, or whether the galaxy was about to discover what humanity was really capable of. Either way, the quiet girl in the back of the classroom was about to become much more visible. The scanning incident left Maya on edge for the next 3 days, but nothing unusual happened. Classes continued their normal rhythm. Her professors remained oblivious to her true capabilities, and the other students treated her with the same polite indifference they always had. Maya began to wonder if she had imagined the whole thing, though her enhanced memory systems assured her that the scans had been very real. On Thursday morning, everything changed. Maya was sitting in advanced theoretical physics when Professor Quantum suddenly stopped mid-sentence. The elderly Zentorian's silver eyes went wide, and his mental projections became chaotic and fragmented. Other Zentorian students in the class began showing signs of distress as well, their empathic abilities picking up whatever was causing the professor's panic. "Class dismissed," Professor Quantum announced abruptly, his usual calm completely shattered. "Return to your dormitories immediately. Academy Alert Protocol 7 is now in effect." Alert Protocol 7 meant potential external threat with unknown capabilities. Maya had memorized all the Academy's emergency procedures during her first week, though she had never expected to see them implemented. As students began filing out of the classroom in confusion, Maya noticed that the Zentorian students were all moving with unusual urgency, their telepathic coordination allowing them to share information that the rest of the class couldn't access. Maya lingered as the classroom emptied, using her enhanced hearing to pick up fragments of whispered conversations. The Zentorian students were speaking in their native language, but Maya had learned to understand most galactic languages within her first year at the Academy. The deep space monitoring stations went silent simultaneously. One of them was saying, "All 12 Outer Rim stations, exactly at 0347 Standard Time. That's impossible unless something disabled them all at once," another replied. "The coordination required would suggest a force with capabilities we've never encountered before," the first student finished. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the classroom's temperature. 12 monitoring stations, each positioned at strategic points around the galaxy's outer rim, served as early warning systems for any potential threats from outside known space. For all of them to go silent simultaneously suggested either a coordinated attack of unprecedented sophistication or the presence of something that could disable advanced Zentorian technology across vast distances. As Maya made her way back to the dormitories, she observed the Academy's response to the crisis. Security patrols had tripled, with mixed teams of Krathan warriors and Gorian guards taking positions at every major intersection. The Aryan students were being organized into aerial reconnaissance groups, their natural flight abilities making them ideal for rapid information gathering. But what concerned Maya most was what she didn't see: any evidence that the Academy had effective protocols for dealing with unknown external threats. All their security measures were designed to handle internal conflicts or attacks from known galactic species. If something truly alien was approaching, the Academy was woefully unprepared. Maya reached her dormitory to find chaos in the common areas. Students from dozens of species were clustered together, sharing rumors and speculation about what was happening. The Academy's communication systems were apparently operating under restricted protocols, releasing only basic safety information without any details about the nature of the threat. "Maya!" Zektar approached her as she entered the main lobby, his crystalline armor displaying the rapid color fluctuations that indicated high stress among his people. "Have you heard anything from the human diplomatic channels?" Maya shook her head, though she made a mental note to check her hidden communication systems once she reached her room. The official human diplomatic presence at the Academy consisted of a single liaison officer who served mostly ceremonial functions. But Maya had access to communication networks that bypassed all official channels. "Nothing official," she said.
Do you know anything more about what's happening? Only rumors, Zektar replied, his armor flickering between blue and deep purple. Some students are saying that entire star systems have gone dark.
Others claim that ships are disappearing along the major trade routes, but the professors aren't telling us anything substantial. Maya excused herself and made her way to her room, her mind racing with possibilities. Once inside, she activated the privacy screens that she had installed during her first week at the academy. To any external observer, the screens would appear to be standard security measures available to all students. In reality, they created a multi-dimensional barrier that would prevent detection by any known scanning technology. With her room secured, Maya accessed her hidden communication systems. The first thing she checked was the Deep Space Monitoring Network, not the official Academy channels, but the much more sophisticated Human Intelligence Network that she had helped design. What she found was worse than the rumors suggested. The 12 monitoring stations hadn't just gone silent. They had been completely destroyed, reduced to constituent atoms by some form of energy weapon that left no residual signatures. The destruction had been so complete that it had taken several hours for anyone to realize that the stations weren't just experiencing communication failures, but the monitoring stations were only the beginning. Maya's enhanced access to galactic communication networks revealed a pattern of destruction that was spreading inward from the galaxy's outer rim. Ships were disappearing, not just human vessels but craft from every major species. The disappearances were following a clear progression toward the galaxy's core worlds. Most disturbing of all, the attacks were showing clear evidence of advanced intelligence. The attackers weren't randomly destroying targets. They were systematically eliminating the galaxy's ability to coordinate defensive responses. Communication relays, military installations, and major shipping hubs were being targeted with surgical precision. Maya pulled up the tactical analysis that her hidden systems had compiled. Based on the pattern of attacks and the technology required to execute them, the invaders possessed capabilities that exceeded any known galactic species by several orders of magnitude. Their ships appeared to be immune to conventional weapons. Their energy output suggested power sources that defied current understanding of physics, and their coordination indicated either a hive mind or communication technology that operated faster than light. In other words, they were facing exactly the kind of threat that Maya had been preparing for her entire life. Maya activated her most secure communication channel, one that connected directly to Earth's highest levels of government and military command. The signal would take several hours to reach Earth, even at faster-than-light speeds, but the message she sent was concise. Unknown external threat confirmed. Capabilities exceed all galactic species. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol Zero. Protocol Zero was humanity's most classified contingency plan, the response reserved for existential threats that exceeded normal defensive capabilities. It would authorize Maya to reveal her true abilities and deploy the technologies she had been developing in secret. But it also meant the end of her carefully maintained cover and the beginning of a new chapter in human-galactic relations. While waiting for Earth's response, Maya began her own preparations. She activated the hidden manufacturing systems built into her dormitory walls, devices disguised as decorative elements that could produce advanced technology on demand. The crystal on her nightstand began generating specialized materials, while the sculpture on her desk started assembling communication components. Maya was so focused on her preparations that she almost missed the soft knock on her door. Her enhanced hearing had detected the approach of someone moving with unusual stealth, but she had assumed it was just enhanced security patrols. The knock came again, followed by a voice she didn't recognize. Maya-chen, my name is Dr. Vexe Mordian. I believe we need to talk. Maya froze. The voice belonged to a Zentarian, but the accent was unlike any she had heard before. More concerning was the fact that this individual had approached her room specifically, despite the academy-wide lockdown that should have kept everyone in designated safe areas. Maya quickly sealed her hidden systems and approached the door cautiously. Through the security viewer, she could see a Zentarian wearing academy professor robes. but something about their appearance was off. The traditional silver markings were present, but the pattern was more complex than any she had seen before, and there was an intensity in the being's eyes that suggested capabilities beyond normal Zentorian telepathy. "I'm sorry," Maya said through the door's communication system, "but we're supposed to remain in our rooms during the lockdown." "The lockdown is precisely why I'm here," Dr. Mordian replied, "and I think you know that what's happening is far more serious than the Academy administration realizes. May I come in? I believe you'll find our conversation illuminating." Every instinct Maya possessed was screaming warnings. This individual had somehow identified her as someone worth approaching during a crisis, had bypassed Academy security to reach her, and was speaking in a way that suggested knowledge of her true nature. But Maya also sensed an opportunity. If this person knew something about the current crisis or about her own situation, the information could be crucial. Maya opened the door but kept her defensive systems ready for instant activation. Dr. Mordian entered with smooth grace, and Maya immediately noticed details that confirmed her suspicions. The Zentorians' movements were too precise, their awareness too complete, and the energy patterns around them suggested technological augmentations that exceeded anything in the Academy's database. "Thank you," Dr. Mordian said, settling into the room's single chair with fluid precision. "I know this must be confusing, but I'm afraid we don't have time for lengthy explanations. What I'm about to tell you will sound incredible, but I believe you're uniquely qualified to understand the implications." Maya remained standing, ready to move if necessary. "Who are you, and how do you know my name?" "I am, as I said, Dr. HFY Mordian. But that's not entirely accurate. I am what you might call a deep cover operative, though the organization I represent doesn't exactly exist in any official capacity." Dr. Mordian's eyes seemed to look directly through Maya's carefully maintained facade. "I've been monitoring promising students at the Academy for several years, looking for individuals with exceptional potential. I'm just a regular human student," Maya said carefully. Dr. Mordian smiled, an expression that seemed strange on Zentarian features. "Maya Chen, you've spent 3 years maintaining test scores at the 50th percentile, despite the fact that you solved Professor Quantum's dimensional folding equations in your head during his first lecture. You've carefully modulated your physical performance to appear average, despite reflexes that would make a Kestrel-born envious. Most impressively, you've managed to hide technological capabilities that exceed anything currently known to galactic science." Maya felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. "I don't know what you're talking about. The energy readings from your dormitory room suggest the presence of at least 3 devices that generate power in excess of a Class 7 civilization, using principles that our best theoretical physicists can't even conceptualize," Dr. Mordian continued calmly. "The scanning protocols you detected 3 days ago were mine, though I must say your counter-surveillance measures are quite sophisticated." The admission that Dr. Mordian had been the source of the mysterious scans confirmed Maya's worst fears. But there was something in the being's manner that suggested this wasn't a hostile interrogation. Dr. Mordian seemed more interested in recruitment than exposure. "What do you want?" Maya asked directly. "I want to offer you a choice," Dr. Mordian replied. "The crisis currently facing the galaxy is real and immediate. The entities attacking our outer systems possess technology that makes them effectively invincible against conventional defenses. Every species in the galaxy will need to unite and contribute their greatest capabilities if we hope to survive." Maya sat down on her bed, her mind racing through the implications. "And you think I have capabilities that would be useful?" "I think you have capabilities that could determine the outcome of this conflict," Dr. Mordian said seriously. "But more than that, I think you've been preparing for exactly this scenario for most of your life." The statement was so accurate that Maya felt a moment of vertigo. "How could you possibly know that, Dr. Cobb?" Mordian leaned forward slightly. "Because I've been preparing for it as well. The organization I represent has been monitoring potential external threats for millennia. watching for signs that something from outside our galaxy might eventually arrive. We've identified individuals across multiple species who might possess the capabilities needed to respond to such a threat. Who is we? Maya asked. That's classified information that I can only share with confirmed operatives, Dr. Mordian replied. But I can tell you that our organization includes members from every major galactic species, individuals who have been secretly developing advanced capabilities while maintaining public personas. Maya felt a spark of hope mixed with caution. The idea that she wasn't alone, that there were others who had been preparing for threats beyond normal galactic experience, was both reassuring and terrifying. If such an organization existed, it suggested that the current crisis had been anticipated. But it also meant that the situation was serious enough to require the activation of assets that had been kept secret for perhaps thousands of years. What would joining your organization require? Maya asked. In the short term, it would require you to reveal your true capabilities and assist in the defense of this sector, Dr. Mordian replied. The Academy has become a primary target for the invading force, probably because it represents the greatest concentration of diverse talent in the galaxy. If we can hold this position, we can buy time for a more comprehensive response. Maya considered the offer carefully. Revealing her abilities would end her carefully maintained cover and expose humanity's true potential to the galactic community. But if the alternative was the destruction of the Academy and potentially the fall of galactic civilization, the choice was clear. I need to contact my government before I can make any commitments, Maya said finally. Dr. Mordian nodded approvingly. Loyalty to your species is commendable, but I should warn you that communication with Earth may not be possible. The invading forces have been systematically targeting long-range communication networks. Maya pulled out her datapad and activated her hidden communication systems. As Dr. Mordian had predicted, all her normal channels were completely dark. Even her most sophisticated relay networks were showing no response from human space. However, Dr. Mordian continued, I can offer you access to our organization's communication network. It operates on principles that should be immune to the invaders' interference. Maya weighed her options. Without contact with Earth, she was effectively operating independently. The training she had received emphasized the importance of following established protocols, but those protocols assumed that communication with command would remain possible. In the current situation, she would need to make decisions based on her own judgment. If I agree to work with your organization, what guarantees do I have about how my abilities will be used? None. Dr. Mordian said honestly, we're facing an existential threat that requires us to use every available resource. I can promise that we won't waste your capabilities or deploy them recklessly, but I can't guarantee that the mission won't require you to take significant risks. Maya stood and walked to her window, looking out at the Academy grounds. Students were still moving between buildings in organized groups, following the emergency protocols. Security forces were maintaining their positions ready to respond to conventional threats. Everything looked normal, but Maya's enhanced senses could detect the underlying tension that permeated the entire facility. If the Academy fell, thousands of students from dozens of species would be killed or captured. If the galactic civilization collapsed, billions of lives would be lost. Weighed against those stakes, her personal concerns about exposure seemed insignificant. All right, Maya said, turning back to Dr. Mordian. What do you need me to do? Dr. Mordian's expression showed clear relief. First, we need to establish communications with other operatives throughout the galaxy. Second, we need to begin upgrading the Academy's defensive systems using whatever advanced technology you can provide. And third, we need to prepare for the possibility that the invading force will arrive here much sooner than anyone expects. Maya activated her hidden manufacturing systems, no longer concerned about concealment. How much time do we have? Dr. Mordian checked a device that Maya now realized was far more sophisticated than it had initially appeared. Based on the rate of their advance and the pattern of destroyed systems, I estimate we have approximately 18 hours before they reach this sector. Maya felt her enhanced metabolism shift into crisis mode, her body preparing for extended high-performance operation. After 3 years of carefully controlled mediocrity, she was finally being asked to use her full capabilities. The quiet girl in the back of the classroom was about to become the Academy's last hope for survival. Maya's dormitory room transformed in the span of minutes. What had appeared to be simple decorations and basic student furnishings revealed themselves as sophisticated manufacturing and communication equipment. The crystal on her nightstand expanded into a complex energy generation system that began producing exotic matter at the molecular level. Her desk sculpture unfolded into a quantum communication array capable of instantaneous transmission across galactic distances. Even her seemingly ordinary wall posters contained display screens that now showed tactical information and sensor readings from across the galaxy. Dr. Mordian watched the transformation with undisguised amazement. Remarkable. The level of miniaturization and concealment exceeds anything in our archives. How long have you been developing this technology? Since I was 12, Maya replied while her hands moved across control interfaces that materialized from previously invisible surfaces. Though the theoretical work started earlier. I began understanding the mathematical principles when I was 7. 7 years old? Dr. Mordian's Zentorian features showed surprise. Most species don't develop advanced abstract reasoning until their equivalent of adolescence. Maya paused in her work to look directly at the operative. Dr. Mordian, exactly what do you know about human capabilities? Because I'm beginning to suspect that the galaxy's understanding of my species is fundamentally incorrect. That's a complicated question. Doctor. Mordian replied carefully. Our organization has been observing human development for several decades. We've identified individuals with exceptional capabilities across multiple fields, but the frequency and sophistication of these capabilities has been increasing dramatically in recent years. Maya's communication array came online, immediately connecting to networks that existed in dimensions beyond normal space-time. The information that flooded her displays painted a picture of galactic-wide chaos that was even worse than she had expected. The invading force wasn't just destroying targets, they were systematically harvesting technology and biological samples from every species they encountered. They're studying us, Maya said, analyzing the patterns in the data. Each attack is gathering information about our capabilities, our weaknesses, our social structures. This isn't a simple invasion. It's a comprehensive analysis of galactic civilization. Dr. Mordian moved closer to examine the displays. Can you determine their point of origin? Maya's fingers danced across controls that operated according to principles that wouldn't be discovered by galactic science for centuries. They're not from this galaxy. The energy signatures are consistent with transgalactic travel, but the technology suggests they've been traveling for much longer than should be physically possible. What do you mean? The wear patterns on their hulls, the isotope decay in their power systems, the gravitational distortions around their ships, all of it suggests they've been in transit for at least 50,000 years. But that's impossible unless they possess temporal manipulation technology or some form of suspended animation that preserves both biological and technological systems. Maya's analysis was interrupted by an urgent signal from her communication array. A message was arriving through channels that required clearance levels far above her supposed student status. She accepted the transmission and found herself facing a holographic projection of Admiral Sarah Chen, the director of Earth's Deep Space Intelligence Division, and, not coincidentally, Maya's aunt. Maya, Admiral Chen's image said without preamble, "We've received your Protocol Zero alert, and we're authorizing full capability deployment. The situation is worse than your initial reports indicated. We've lost contact with 3 human colonies in the outer systems, and our deep space reconnaissance suggests the invading force numbers in the tens of thousands of vessels." Dr. Mordian stepped into the projection's range, causing Admiral Chen's expression to shift to one of alert suspicion. "Who is that?" Dr. Bexai Mordian, Maya replied. claims to represent a multi-species organization that's been preparing for external threats. The timing of contact suggests either excellent intelligence gathering or direct involvement with current events. Admiral Chen studied Dr. Mordian for several seconds. Doctor, I'm going to ask you some questions, and your answers will determine whether we treat you as an ally or a threat. How long has your organization been aware of Earth's classified programs? Approximately 15 years, Dr. Mordian replied calmly. Though we only became aware of the full scope of human capabilities when Maya began her studies at the Academy. What's the name of your organization? The Guardians of the Deep. We've been monitoring this galaxy's defenses against extragalactic threats for approximately 8,000 years. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change, but Maya could see the tension in her aunt's posture. Maya, what's your assessment of this individual's credibility? Maya considered the question carefully. The technology they've demonstrated is consistent with their claims. The information they possess about my capabilities suggests either extensive surveillance or insider knowledge. Most importantly, their strategic assessment of the current threat matches our own intelligence, including details that haven't been shared through any known channels. Dr. Admiral Chen addressed Dr. Mordian directly. What exactly does your organization want from us? Admiral, we want humanity to join a cooperative effort to defend this galaxy against a threat that could destroy all life within it. In exchange, we're prepared to share technological and strategic resources that could enhance your species' defensive capabilities by several orders of magnitude. Admiral Chen was silent for several moments. Maya, what do you need to defend the Academy? Maya turned back to her control systems, pulling up tactical analyses that her enhanced processing capabilities had been running in the background. The Academy's current defensive systems are completely inadequate for the threat we're facing. However, with approximately 6 hours of preparation time, I can upgrade their shields, weapons, and sensor networks to a level that should be able to withstand at least the initial assault. What about evacuation? Not possible, Dr. Mordian interjected. Our intelligence suggests that the invading force specifically targets refugee convoys. Students would be safer remaining here under enhanced defenses than attempting to flee. Maya's sensor networks suddenly detected massive energy signatures approaching the outer edge of the star system. Admiral, we have incoming contacts. Multiple vessels, moving at approximately 15% light speed. Estimated arrival in 16 hours, 43 minutes. Admiral Chen's expression became grimly determined. Maya, you are authorized to use any and all capabilities necessary to defend the Academy and preserve galactic civilization. Dr. Mordian, if you're legitimate, now would be an excellent time to prove it. The holographic transmission ended, leaving Maya and Dr. Mordian alone in a room that now looked more like a military command center than a student dormitory. Maya began activating systems that would allow her to interface directly with the Academy's infrastructure. I need access to the Academy's central computer core, Maya said while her equipment established connections to networks throughout the facility. Can your organization provide that access? Dr. Mordian produced a device that looked like standard Academy maintenance equipment but clearly incorporated technology far beyond galactic norms. This will give you administrative access to all Academy systems. But Maya, once you begin upgrading their technology, there will be no hiding what you're capable of. Maya paused for a moment, considering the implications. For 3 years, she had worked to remain invisible, to blend in with the background of galactic civilization. Once she revealed her true capabilities, everything would change. Humanity's role in the galaxy would be forever altered, and her own life would never be the same. But outside the Academy, thousands of ships filled with beings that wanted to destroy everything she cared about were approaching at impossible speeds. Weighed against that threat, personal concerns seemed insignificant. Dr. Mordian, how many other operatives does your organization have? Fewer than we need, Dr. Scotty, Mordian replied honestly. Perhaps 24 active operatives scattered across the galaxy. each with specialized capabilities. You may be the most technically capable individual we've ever recruited. Maya connected her systems to the Academy's infrastructure and immediately encountered security protocols that would have stopped any conventional attempt at access. But Maya's technology operated according to principles that made conventional security irrelevant. She bypassed the Academy's defenses like water flowing around rocks. "I'm in," Maya announced, "beginning defensive system upgrades." The Academy's energy grid suddenly surged to 10x its normal capacity as Maya's power generation systems came online. Force field generators throughout the facility began upgrading themselves, incorporating design principles that wouldn't be discovered by galactic science for centuries. Weapon systems that had been intended for training purposes transformed into defensive arrays capable of destroying capital ships. Maya's enhanced awareness allowed her to monitor the Academy's entire infrastructure simultaneously. She could sense the confusion among the maintenance staff as systems began operating far beyond their supposed capabilities. She could feel the concern among the faculty as energy readings climbed to impossible levels. Most importantly, she could detect the growing recognition among the more perceptive students that something fundamental had changed. "Maya," Dr. Mordian said carefully, "the students are beginning to notice the changes. Some of the more sensitive Zenturian telepaths are reporting unusual energy patterns throughout the Academy." Maya brought up displays showing camera feeds from throughout the facility. Students were gathering in common areas, pointing at walls that were now glowing with previously invisible energy conduits. Faculty members were frantically checking their instruments, trying to understand readings that exceeded the measurement capabilities of their equipment. "They deserve to know what's happening," Maya said finally. "Dr. Mordian, does your organization have protocols for revealing ourselves to the general population?" "We've never faced this situation before," Dr. Mordian admitted. "Our operational doctrine has always emphasized secrecy and careful coordination, but the current crisis may require us to abandon those principles." Maya made a decision that would change everything. "Connect me to the Academy's general communication system." Within moments, Maya had access to every speaker, display screen, and communication device throughout the Academy. Students and faculty throughout the facility would be able to see and hear everything she said. "Attention, all Academy personnel," Maya began, her voice reaching every corner of the facility. "My name is Maya Chen, and I need to explain what's happening to our defensive systems." Across the Academy, thousands of beings stopped what they were doing to listen to the human student who had been unremarkable for 3 years but was now somehow controlling their entire facility. "For the past 3 years, I have been maintaining a false identity while attending classes here. I am not an average human student. I am a representative of humanity's response to potential extragalactic threats. And the threat we have been preparing for has now arrived." Maya paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. "The energy readings you're detecting throughout the Academy represent defensive upgrades that will protect this facility from an invasion force that is approximately 16 hours away from this system. These upgrades incorporate technology that exceeds current galactic standards because humanity's technological development has been deliberately concealed." Display screens throughout the Academy began showing tactical information that Maya's sensors had gathered about the approaching invasion fleet. The images showed ships the size of small moons, energy weapons that could vaporize planets, and coordination that suggested a unified command structure controlling tens of thousands of vessels. "The beings approaching our system have been systematically destroying galactic civilization, harvesting our technology, and studying our capabilities. They have been traveling between galaxies for approximately 50,000 years, and they view our entire civilization as nothing more than a source of resources and information." Maya's sensor networks detected massive spikes in stress indicators throughout the Academy as the full scope of the threat became clear, but she also detected something else: determination. Despite their fear, the Academy's students and faculty were preparing to fight. "I know this information is overwhelming," Maya continued, but you need to understand that we are not helpless against this threat. The defensive systems I am installing will protect the Academy, and similar upgrades are being implemented throughout human space and, I hope, throughout the territories of all galactic species. Dr. Mordian stepped closer to Maya's communication array. May I address them as well? Maya nodded, and Dr. Mordian's voice joined her own on the Academy-wide broadcast. Students and faculty of the Galactic Academy, I am Dr. Bexai Mordian, representative of an organization that has been preparing for this threat for millennia. We are asking all species to contribute their greatest capabilities to our common defense. What Maya Chen is demonstrating represents humanity's contribution to this effort. Maya's tactical displays suddenly lit up with new information. The approaching invasion fleet had detected the Academy's upgraded defensive systems and was changing course to investigate. Instead of passing by the Academy on their way to the system's major population centers, they were now heading directly toward the facility. Dr. Mordian, Maya said quietly, I think we just became their primary target. Dr. Salutary? Mordian checked his own equipment and confirmed Maya's reading. The Academy now represents the most advanced defensive position in this system. They're treating us as a significant threat. Maya smiled grimly. Good. That means our preparations are working. But it also means we're going to find out very soon whether my upgrades are sufficient to stop weapons that can destroy star systems. Throughout the Academy, students from dozens of species were making their own preparations. Centaurian telepaths were establishing communication networks that would allow instant coordination between different areas of the facility. Krathan warriors were organizing defensive positions that would protect the more vulnerable species. Aryan students were preparing to serve as rapid response teams that could quickly address threats anywhere in the Academy. Maya watched these preparations with a mixture of pride and concern. These students had trained for academic exercises and controlled simulations. In a few hours, they would be facing a real battle against an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. But they were also surrounded by defensive systems that incorporated principles beyond anything their teachers had imagined. Protected by force fields that could stop weapons designed to crack planets, and supported by technology that would redefine what was possible in galactic warfare. Maya Chen, the quiet girl in the back of the classroom, was about to find out whether 3 years of careful preparation would be enough to protect everything she had come to care about. The Academy transformed over the following 12 hours in ways that defied every principle of known engineering. Maya's upgrades didn't just improve existing systems, they fundamentally altered the nature of matter and energy within the facility. Walls became adaptive armor that could reconfigure itself to resist any form of attack. Corridors developed the ability to extend or contract space-time, allowing rapid movement between distant areas. Even the air itself became a defensive medium, capable of absorbing and redirecting energy weapons. Maya had positioned herself in what had once been the Academy's central computer core, now transformed into a command center that looked more like something from a dream than any real technology. Holographic displays surrounded her in 3 dimensions, showing everything from molecular-level readouts of the Academy's defensive systems to galaxy-wide tactical assessments. Dr. Mordian worked at a parallel station, coordinating with Guardians of the Deep operatives throughout the galaxy. Contact with the Andorian sector has been re-established, Dr. Mordian reported. Agent Kesta reports successful defensive implementations at the Military Academy on Vex Prime. They're requesting technical specifications for your shield harmonics. Maya transmitted the requested information while monitoring approximately 50,000 different aspects of the Academy's defensive preparations simultaneously. Her enhanced consciousness could process vast amounts of data without losing track of any single detail, a capability that had taken her years to develop and longer to control. Dr. Mordian, what exactly are the Guardians of the Deep? I've been analyzing your technology, and some of the principles you're using suggest development times that exceed the known history of most galactic species. Dr. Mordian paused in his coordination efforts. We are survivors, Maya. 8,000 years ago, the first extragalactic invasion reached our galaxy. It wasn't these current invaders, but beings from a different direction entirely. They nearly succeeded in destroying all life here before a coalition of species managed to stop them. What happened to the invaders? They were eliminated completely, but the cost was enormous. Entire species went extinct, whole sectors became uninhabitable, and the technological infrastructure of galactic civilization was set back by millennia. Dr. Mordian's expression became grim. The Guardians of the Deep were formed from the survivors who dedicated themselves to ensuring that we would never again be caught unprepared. Maya's tactical displays suddenly erupted with warning signals. The invasion fleet had reached the outer edge of the star system and was deploying in attack formations that spanned millions of cubic kilometers. The energy readings from their approach were unlike anything in her databases. Maya, Dr. Mordian's voice carried urgent concern. The fleet composition doesn't match any of our previous intelligence. They're deploying weapons platforms that we've never seen before. Maya extended her sensor networks throughout the system, using principles that allowed her to observe events from multiple dimensional perspectives simultaneously. What she found was worse than their worst-case projections. "They've been holding back," Maya said quietly. "Every previous attack was just a probe, testing our responses and gathering data. This fleet represents their actual military capability. The invasion fleet numbered over 30,000 vessels, ranging in size from kilometer-long fighters to command ships that were larger than most asteroids. But size wasn't their most concerning characteristic. Maya's sensors detected energy patterns that suggested these ships existed partially outside normal space-time, making them effectively immune to conventional weapons. Dr. Mordian, do your archives contain any information about trans-dimensional military technology? Some theoretical work, but nothing that suggests practical applications. Dr. Mordian checked his own readings, confirming Maya's analysis. Are you saying these ships are operating in multiple dimensions simultaneously? Not just operating in multiple dimensions. They're using dimensional variance as a defensive measure. When conventional weapons target them, the ships shift into dimensional states where the weapons simply pass through them without causing damage. Maya's enhanced processing capabilities began working on solutions to the trans-dimensional defense problem. The mathematics were staggering in their complexity, requiring her to consider 12-dimensional interactions while maintaining real-time tactical awareness. But gradually, potential solutions began to emerge. "I can counter their dimensional shifting," Maya announced, "but it will require me to modify our weapon systems in ways that violate several basic principles of physics as currently understood." "Maya," Mordian said carefully, "exactly how advanced are human capabilities? Because what you're describing suggests understanding that exceeds anything the Guardians have developed in 8,000 years of preparation." Before Maya could answer, the Academy's emergency alert systems activated. The invasion fleet had begun its final approach, and the first wave of attackers would reach the Academy in less than 30 minutes. Maya activated the Academy-wide communication system. "All Academy personnel, this is Maya Chen. The invasion fleet has entered our system and will reach us shortly. I need everyone to move to designated safe areas immediately. The upcoming battle will involve forces and technologies that could be dangerous, even to observers." Throughout the Academy, students and faculty began moving to reinforced areas that Maya's upgrades had prepared. But Maya was surprised to see that many students were refusing to evacuate, instead organizing themselves into support groups that could assist with defensive operations. Zektar approached Maya's command center, his crystalline armor displaying determination patterns that Maya had never seen before. "Maya, many of us want to help. We know we don't have your technological capabilities, but this is our academy too." Maya looked around the command center, seeing faces from dozens of species, all showing the same resolute determination. Centaurian telepaths who could coordinate communications, Krathan warriors who could manage defensive systems, Aryan students who could serve as rapid response teams, and members of species she had barely interacted with, all volunteering to stand against an enemy that outclassed galactic civilization. Zektar, this isn't going to be like any training exercise you've experienced. The weapons we're facing can destroy planets. The energies involved could be lethal even through our defensive systems. We know, Zektar replied simply, but this is our home, and these are our friends. We're not going to hide while you fight alone. Dr. Mordian stepped forward. Maya, coordinated support from multiple species could actually enhance our defensive capabilities. The Guardians have protocols for integrated operations. Maya made another decision that went against every principle of careful secrecy she had lived by. All right, but if you're going to help, you need to understand what you're really dealing with. Maya activated displays that showed not just the current tactical situation, but the broader strategic picture that her intelligence networks had assembled. The invasion fleet approaching the Academy was only one small part of a force that numbered in the millions of ships, spread across multiple galaxies and operating with coordination that suggested either a hive mind or artificial intelligence of unimaginable sophistication. These invaders call themselves the Harvesters, Maya explained. They travel between galaxies, arriving in force every 50 to 60,000 years. Their goal isn't conquest in any traditional sense. They're collecting biological and technological samples from every civilization they encounter, apparently as part of some vast research project that spans cosmic timescales. Research project? Asked Lysa, the ethereal student whose phasing exercises Maya had been listening to for months. We don't know their ultimate goal, Doctor said. Mordian replied. But their pattern suggests they're gathering information about how life evolves in different galactic environments. They're not just destroying civilizations. They're studying them first, learning everything possible about our capabilities and limitations. Maya's sensor networks detected energy spikes throughout the approaching fleet. Burst wave incoming. All personnel prepare for contact. The lead ships of the invasion fleet opened fire while still millions of kilometers away, using weapons that channeled energy through dimensional fractures to bypass the normal limitations of space and time. Beams that should have taken minutes to cross the intervening distance arrived almost instantaneously, striking the Academy's outer shields with force that could have vaporized mountains. The Academy's upgraded shields absorbed the impact without even flickering. Throughout the command center, students from multiple species watched in amazement as energy readings that exceeded their understanding of physics were simply neutralized by defensive systems that Maya had built into the Academy's structure. "How is this possible?" whispered a Gorian student whose natural strength made him nearly indestructible, but who was now seeing forces that made his own capabilities seem insignificant. Human engineering approaches problems differently than most species, Maya replied while simultaneously coordinating defensive responses across 17 different dimensional states. We don't just work within the limitations of known physics. We find ways to redefine what those limitations actually mean. The invasion fleet responded to the failure of their first assault by deploying weapons that Maya's sensors couldn't even classify. Energy patterns that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously, gravitational distortions that could collapse matter at the subatomic level, and temporal displacement fields that could age targets by millions of years in seconds. Maya's defensive systems countered each attack with responses that seemed to violate causality itself. Weapons that fired before being targeted, shields that existed in the past to block attacks that happened in the future, and energy redirects that turned the invaders' own weapons against each other across vast distances. "Maya," Mordian said quietly, "the tactical coordination you're demonstrating exceeds anything in Guardian archives. Where did you learn to conduct warfare in multiple dimensions simultaneously?" "I didn't learn it," Maya replied while her consciousness managed approximately 10 million calculations per second. "I derived it from first principles when I was 14. Most of what I'm doing isn't actually that complicated once you understand that space and time are much more flexible than most species assume." The invasion fleet began deploying their heavy assault platforms, ships the size of small moons that were designed to crack planets open like eggs. Maya's sensors detected energy buildup that suggested weapons capable of destabilizing the entire star system. But Maya was no longer just defending. Her weapon systems, hidden throughout the Academy and extending into space through dimensional manipulation, began their own assault. Energy beams that struck targets in the past before they could deploy defenses, gravitational weapons that compressed enemy ships into neutron-dense matter, and reality distortions that simply deleted hostile vessels from existence. In the span of 30 seconds, Maya destroyed over 3,000 enemy ships using principles that made conventional warfare obsolete. The invasion fleet responded by doing something that Maya had never seen before. They retreated. Ships that had been advancing in perfect formation suddenly reversed course, moving away from the Academy at speeds that exceeded their approach velocity. Energy signatures throughout the fleet shifted to defensive configurations, and new vessels began arriving that were clearly designed for reconnaissance rather than assault.
"They're studying us, Dr.
Mordian said with growing understanding. This wasn't just an attack, it was a test to measure our capabilities. Maya's analysis confirmed his assessment. They're gathering data about our defensive systems, learning how we countered their weapons, analyzing the principles behind our technology. This was never intended to be a decisive assault. Then what happens next? Maya's enhanced processing capabilities began modeling the invaders' likely responses based on the information they had just gathered. The results were deeply concerning. "They're going to adapt," Maya said grimly. "Everything we just demonstrated will be incorporated into their strategic planning. When they attack again, they'll have weapons specifically designed to counter our defenses." "How long do we have?" Maya consulted her predictive models, taking into account the invaders' apparent technological capabilities and the complexity of the adaptations they would need to make. "Approximately 6 hours. They're using the time to redesign their entire assault strategy around what we've just shown them." Dr. Mordian activated his communication systems to contact other Guardian operatives throughout the galaxy. "Then we need to use those 6 hours to coordinate a response that they can't adapt to." Maya was already working on solutions that would make adaptation irrelevant, but she was also beginning to understand the true scope of the challenge they faced. The invaders weren't just technologically advanced. They were strategically sophisticated in ways that suggested experience with countless previous conflicts across multiple galaxies. Humanity's greatest secret weapon was about to face her greatest test, and the survival of galactic civilization depended on whether a quiet human student could outthink enemies who had been perfecting their methods for millions of years. In the 6 hours between the first assault and the anticipated return of the invasion fleet, Maya did something that no single being had ever attempted before. She began rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within a localized region of space-time. Not violating those laws or finding clever workarounds, but actually changing the basic principles that governed how matter and energy behaved in the vicinity of the Academy. The process required her to work simultaneously in 17 dimensions, maintaining precise mathematical relationships that would collapse into chaos if any single variable deviated by more than 1 part in 10 trillion. Maya's enhanced consciousness had been designed for exactly this kind of challenge, but even she was operating at the absolute limits of her capabilities. Dr. Mordian watched the reality modifications with a mixture of awe and terror. "Maya, what you're doing, this goes beyond advanced technology. You're functioning as a localized force of nature." "Not quite," Maya replied while her awareness simultaneously monitored quantum fluctuations across several cubic light-years. "I'm working within natural principles, just at levels that most species haven't discovered yet. Think of it as applied mathematics rather than miraculous intervention." Throughout the Academy, students and faculty were experiencing the effects of Maya's modifications in ways their senses couldn't quite process. Zentarian telepaths reported that thoughts were moving faster and more clearly than they had ever experienced. Krathan warriors found that their crystalline armor was resonating with harmonic frequencies that enhanced both their strength Even the Academy's basic systems were operating with efficiency that exceeded their theoretical maximums. Maya Zektar approached the command center with reports from throughout the facility. The students are asking what they're feeling. Many species are reporting enhanced abilities that exceed anything in their historical records. Maya paused her reality modifications long enough to address the question. I'm optimizing the local physics environment to enhance biological and technological efficiency. Your enhanced capabilities are side effects of operating in space-time that's been tuned for maximum performance. But Maya's real focus was on the approaching enemy fleet. Her sensor networks, now operating according to principles that allowed her to observe events before they happened, were tracking the invaders' preparations. What she found exceeded even her pessimistic projections. The harvesters were just adapting their weapons and tactics. They were fundamentally altering their entire approach to warfare, incorporating principles they had learned from Maya's defensive demonstrations. More concerning, they were deploying technologies that suggested capabilities far beyond what they had shown in their initial assault. Dr. Mordian, Maya said carefully, I need to share something with you that might change your understanding of this conflict. The harvesters aren't just an invasion force. They're something much more complex and dangerous. Maya activated displays that showed the results of her deep analysis of the enemy fleet. The information painted a picture that redefined everything they thought they knew about their opponents. The harvesters are refugees, Maya announced. They're fleeing from something that destroyed their home galaxy approximately 2 million years ago. Everything they've been doing, the systematic study of other civilizations, the harvesting of technology and biological samples, the careful preservation of information, it's all part of an effort to rebuild their civilization using knowledge gathered from across the universe. Dr. Mordian's expression shifted from confusion to horror as the implications became clear. If they're refugees, then what destroyed their home galaxy? Maya's displays showed sensor readings that extended far beyond the current conflict, reaching across intergalactic distances to detect energy signatures that were almost too vast to comprehend. Something is coming, Dr. Mordian. Something that makes the harvesters look like children playing with toys. They're not invading our galaxy to conquer it. They're trying to prepare it to survive what's following them. The revelation hit everyone in the command center like a physical blow. The enemy they had been preparing to fight wasn't actually an enemy at all, but fellow refugees trying to survive against a threat so enormous that it defied imagination. Then why are they attacking us? Asked Lysa, her ethereal form flickering with confusion. 'Cause they don't believe we can survive what's coming, Maya replied. They think the only way to preserve any form of civilization is to gather as much knowledge and technology as possible before the real threat arrives. From their perspective, they're not destroying civilizations. They're preserving them in the only way they know how. Maya's sensor network suddenly detected massive energy spikes throughout the approaching harvester fleet. But instead of weapons powering up, the signatures suggested communication systems operating at unimaginable scales. Maya, Mordian said urgently, they're trying to establish contact. Maya opened communication channels using her modified physics environment to enable translation across dimensional and conceptual barriers that had never been bridged before. The voice that emerged was unlike anything any of them had ever heard. Not sound, but direct information transfer that conveyed meaning, emotion, and complex abstract concepts simultaneously. Being of unprecedented capability, the communication began, you have demonstrated technological sophistication that exceeds our projections for this galactic sector by several orders of magnitude. Maya responded using the same information transfer protocols. Harvester entities, we understand your situation and the threat you're fleeing. But your methods of preservation involve destroying civilizations that might be able to contribute to defense against the real threat. We propose an alternative approach. Explain alternative approach. Maya activated displays that showed plans she had been developing throughout the previous battle. Instead of harvesting civilizations, we form a defensive alliance that combines the capabilities of all species in this galaxy, enhanced by technology that can optimize performance across multiple dimensional states. We don't preserve civilization by destroying it, we preserve it by making it strong enough to survive. The communication from the Harvester fleet paused for several minutes, during which Maya's sensors detected intense activity throughout their ships. When the response came, it carried undertones of hope mixed with skepticism. Your optimization technology suggests capabilities that approach those of the threat we flee, but our analysis of galactic civilization indicates insufficient coordination and development time to achieve necessary defensive preparations. That's where you're wrong, Maya replied.
You've been analyzing galactic civilization based on what you could observe from the outside. You haven't seen what we're really capable of when we work together.
Maya activated the communication networks that Dr. Mordian's organization had established throughout the galaxy. But instead of just connecting with Guardian operatives, she extended the network to include every major civilization, every military command, every scientific institution that had been secretly developing advanced capabilities. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Signals began arriving from across the galaxy as species after species revealed technologies and capabilities they had been hiding for centuries. Zentorian collective consciousness projects that could coordinate the thoughts of entire star systems. Krathan harmonic engineering that could restructure matter at the atomic level through sound. Gorian gravitational manipulation that could move planets. Arion dimensional travel that made distance irrelevant. But most impressive of all were the human signals. Dozens of individuals like Maya scattered across human space, each with capabilities that had been hidden until this moment. Maya realized she wasn't alone and had never been alone. Humanity had been preparing for this threat for generations, developing not just technology but individuals who could implement solutions that exceeded the limitations of conventional science. Harvester entities, Maya continued, observe the actual capabilities of galactic civilization when properly coordinated and optimized. Maya began implementing the coordination protocols she had been developing, connecting the enhanced capabilities of every species into a unified defensive network. The Academy became the central node of a system that extended across the entire galaxy, linking every world, every ship, every individual who was capable of contributing to their common defense. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Star systems that had been defenseless suddenly acquired protection that could stop planet-killing weapons. Trade routes that had been vulnerable to attack became corridors of safety, guarded by forces that operated in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most importantly, the galaxy's disparate civilizations began working together with coordination that exceeded anything in their histories. The Harvester fleet's response came with tones of amazement and rapidly growing hope. Coordination efficiency exceeds all previous observations. Defensive capability projections suggest possible survival against approaching threat. Request formal alliance for mutual preservation. Alliance accepted, Maya replied. But we do this as equals, not as harvesters and harvested. Every species contributes their strengths, every civilization maintains their independence, and every individual has the right to determine their own fate. The transformation that followed redefined what was possible in galactic civilization. Harvester technology, focused on preservation and analysis, combined with galactic innovation and human optimization to create defensive systems that spanned multiple galaxies. The Academy became the training center where representatives from every species learned to work with capabilities that exceeded their previous understanding of what was possible. Maya found herself at the center of developments that would reshape the universe. But she was no longer the quiet girl hiding in the back of the classroom. She had become what she had always been meant to be. A bridge between civilizations, a catalyst for cooperation that could achieve what no single species could accomplish alone. Dr. Mordian, whose organization had prepared for threats they couldn't imagine, became one of Maya's closest collaborators in developing strategies that could protect not just their galaxy, but every galaxy that chose to join their alliance. Zektar and the other Academy students became the first graduates of a new kind of education, learning to work with technologies and concepts that would have been considered impossible just months before. And when the real threat finally arrived, entities from beyond the known universe that had been systematically destroying galaxies for millions of years, they found something they had never encountered before. A coalition of civilizations that had learned to work together so effectively that their combined capabilities exceeded the sum of their individual strengths. The quiet girl from Earth had kept her secret until the moment when revealing it could save everyone she cared about. Maya Chen's true identity had been humanity's greatest weapon and galactic civilization's salvation. But more importantly, it had been proof that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or weapons or individual ability. It was the choice to stand together when everything depended on it, to share knowledge instead of hoarding it, and to trust that cooperation could achieve what conflict never could. Maya had spent 3 years being invisible, but when the galaxy needed her most, she had chosen to shine brighter than any star. And in that choice, she had shown the universe what humanity was really capable of when they stopped hiding their light and started sharing it with everyone who needed to see the way forward. The Academy's records would forever remember the day when a nobody became the most. Nobody knew her true identity until the school revealed her courageous deeds. Best HFY Stories, HFY Tale.